Hi everybody. Today I'm going to be working in my extra large sketchbook and I want to talk about doing acrylic paintings, and I'm going to be working on an intuitive painting. I want to talk about how to get started, the painting process itself, and how to complete them. So meet me inside and we can get started. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel and giving me a like. I would really appreciate it. It helps my channel grow, and I do appreciate it so very much. Thank you. I'll see you inside. So this is where I left off after the YouTube live. I wasn't on there very long, just about a half hour, and I had just done a very light pencil sketch in here. Really, it was just the horses and maybe a couple of trees and things. I mean, this is an intuitive painting, or it's going to be an intuitive painting. So I just did some trees. I plan on putting in flowers and some other things, but mostly an intuitive painting. I don't really have a reference for it. I very often paint flora and fauna, and I do have books that I use for reference a lot of times if I'm going to do painting from a reference, or I just go out in nature and paint, and I do that so often that I just can paint out of my head. I have been painting and drawing horses my whole life because I've always loved them. I have horses. I have 2 rescue horses here at my home. I've had horses my whole life. I can close my eyes and put my hand on every part of a horse without looking at one, so I don't really need to have anything to look at when I'm drawing them. So this is just kind of an intuitive drawing sketch in my sketchbook, and today I'm just playing and practicing, and just want to do something for the springtime and bring in some colors and some, just like a springtime painting where there may not be a lot on the trees still, but things are starting to pop up. We have some things popping up here out of the ground, but you know, not really a lot growing on the trees yet, and just the little wildflowers coming up, and some daffodils and things like that, and no leaves or anything, but things are starting to turn green and grass is starting to grow and things like that. So that's what I'm gonna do on this little horse painting, and I'm just gonna let it kind of unfold as it does, you know, just kind of painting for myself, trying to relax and be really playful and intuitive with this piece. And I'm going to be using acrylic paint. What you see in the background is Neocolor 1 crayon, so not the water-soluble kind. And all I had done was I had just gone over my pencil drawing so that people could see the underdrawing, which was very light on my YouTube live. And I'm just going to play with that process and see what happens with those, and hopefully I can you know, do them more regularly. I think it could be really fun. I always loved teaching on Zoom, so yeah. So this is an intuitive painting process. I mean, I didn't do a lot of planning for this picture. I mean, I drew this pretty much out of my head. I've been drawing horses since I was really young, so I didn't have a reference for it. I just drew the horses. This is a very typical thing that horses do. where they stand head to tail and they either groom each other, or in the summertime when it's really hot, they'll swap flies. So it's kind of a common horse behavior thing for them to do. And I very often paint trees and flowers and all sorts of plant life, so I can do that without looking at a reference. So I think I'm just going to let this unfold as I go along. So I did do some, I sketched in some trees, but I'm not using a reference. I'm just going to kind of paint and go along and create things as they pop up in my painting. I'm planning to use, just a bunch of different colors, and I want something really happy and spring-like, but early spring, something that shows early spring, so that maybe there's not leaves on the trees yet and things are just starting to emerge, and I just want happy colors and something that evokes spring. So that's what I'm going for, but I'm going to work very loosely and not worry about everything being perfect, and just have, fun painting today. So this is painting for myself and not getting hung up about being super tight or details or any of that stuff. I'm just going to go in and play with acrylic paint. It's mostly going to be acrylic. I don't think I'm going to add in a lot of mixed media to this. Mostly I'm just going to be painting with my acrylics. If I have to draw anything, I may draw but then paint over it. So most of the time when I'm painting, I'm using either Liquitex or golden paints. But if you have, I always tell, even like because I have painting students, I always tell people just to use what they have. I think at some point you might want to go to more expensive paint, but I always tell people this too, is that when you're ready to upgrade, you will actually spend less money on expensive paint because it lasts longer, it goes farther, and you use less. I squish out those very smallest amounts of paint onto my palette because expensive paint is very pigment dense, and it covers so well that you end up using so little of it. And student grade paint, it doesn't go as far. So like the pigmentation and the way it covers is not as good. So you end up using far more than you would like with a better brand or a more expensive artist grade paint. So there is a difference. I am painting a pink tree here. Yes, I am. I do this sometimes. Sometimes I don't use local color. I was having a little technical difficulty with my camera slipping, so I skipped ahead a little bit because things got real crazy for a minute with my camera. So anyway, you could see I got quite a bit of the background done and then had to cut some of my thing out. But here I am, and I'm just going along, and I'm just building up layers here, layers of color. If I don't like a color, I just paint back over it. And I'm working a lot with complementary colors, so I'm doing a lot of different hues of green. So I'm using different values and hues of green. So I'm using some cool greens, some warm greens. Some are darker, some are lighter, to give, balance. And then I'm putting complements next to each other, so greens next to pinks and reds, and those flowers are kind of almost a red violet, and I'm putting almost a yellow orange in there. So that's popping off of itself. And then I did the same thing with the that kind of a yellow, that horse is almost a yellow chestnut color, and he's next to the red violet tree. So I'm kind of sneaking in some complementary colors in unexpected places, just to get some fun color theory going in my painting. I'm just kind of going around and building up layers and trying to create interest in the background for my horses and their little meadow, and they're just kind of hanging out. The horses still have very, very little on their bodies. I haven't really built up the backgrounds there, and I'm just kind of, going along. And if I don't like something I just let it dry, and I go back in and I change it. I don't worry about a thing when I'm painting this way. This is how I start painting. Sometimes I just fool around like this, and then maybe I'll get a little bit more serious about it, trying out some of these colors in different places and seeing how they work in the painting. And if they don't work, I just paint over them. And then if I really like what I see in the painting, I might move it over to a canvas or a board in a bigger size, or maybe I might do one on a larger piece of watercolor paper or something and see how that looks. And then, from there I further develop it. But this is the first place I sometimes go to try out an idea. And that's what I love about my sketchbooks and working in my sketchbooks. It's just a place to try things out. You never have to show them to anybody if you don't want to. But I bring them along to my classes, and I share them with my students because I want them to see that this process is, it's a lot of times you don't see this part of the process, and a lot of artists have it where it might not be in a sketchbook, but they do a lot of studies ahead of their big paintings, and there might be a lot of studies involved before you see a major work on canvas, but you may not see this work. There may be several works that come before a major painting, and you just never get to see these little studies that we all do. I realize as I'm taping this voiceover that my cat is purring so loudly through the whole thing, so I'm apologizing for that. She can't be stopped, and she's always right next to me when I'm working. So I'm just going, at this point in this painting, I am just going around the background of this painting, and I'm trying to see what I want to do in this background. And I'm looking at the colors, and I am really kind of trying to hone down on what I'm doing in the sky, and with that, that part of it. And, I have not gotten up and walked away from it yet, but I am working on that part of it. And I'm going to say this painting took about an hour and a half to paint. And this sketchbook is fairly large. It is a big sketchbook. I want to say when it's open, it is a very large book. It is almost, I think open, it's close to 16 by 20, so it's almost the size of a large painting. But it's not quite the same as doing a canvas painting because it is on paper and it's, you know, it doesn't take the paint the same way, and it's just a little different. I think what I'm trying to do here is make it look like the light is coming through the trees and that it's very dense in other parts of the background. Like there's, you know, parts of the bottom part of it are darker, so almost like there's, you know, woods, but there's light coming through. Now, normally I do recommend to people or to my students especially, and to get up and walk away from paintings while you're working on them. So maybe like every half hour, just to, you know, put it upright and, you know, walk across the room and look at it, because you will see so much stuff. Things will pop right out at you. The other thing I like to do is take a picture of it with my cell phone and reverse the picture so that it's backwards, so you get the mirror image of it. Those types of things will really help. Also, putting it into black and white at the very end when you think you're done is a really great thing to do, because it will tell you if your values are well defined. And like that's like a big thing. If especially when you're a beginning artist, a lot of times you don't have enough definition between your light and dark values. A lot of times beginners especially tend to stay in the mid-range values, and everything is one value rather than having a distinct definition between light and dark values. And you really want to have that. So by taking the picture and putting it into noir or the black and white setting, you'll be able to tell if your values are working in your painting. So those are all really good tips for painting and knowing if you're finished. Knowing if you're finished is one of the hardest things to do when you're painting. Now I'm just going to be painting in some of the details I sketched in on the horses. So I'm just going to go ahead and add that in on both of them. I sketched it in so I would have a reference point to start from. And I'm going to be adding those details in with the paint now. I just wanted to have something to go by. I just wanted to make sure I was putting my eyes and stuff into the right places and all that. That's the one thing with animals that you really have to know. So having a reference is really important, because like knowing where their eye sits on their face is hugely important. Where their nostril goes, where their lip goes, how their ears attach, that's all huge. And it can make them look really weird if you don't know where they go. So that's one thing that you really need to know or have a picture to work from while you're still learning. So here, when I started doing these details, I decided to not go with like a really harsh black color. I went with a very dark neutral gray instead. I tend not to use jet black or any of the blacks. I usually either mix a black by combining two complementary colors, or I will use the neutral gray you know, either a dark neutral gray or most of the time I'll mix a complementary color, but this is neutral gray 5, which is a Liquitex color. It's just softer, and it ends up being far less harsh than using... Now the cat's meowing. I'm so sorry. This cat tonight is really wants to be a celebrity. I'm so sorry. So yes, it ends up being far less harsh in a painting than jet black. It's just a softer look. I did end up changing the plant in the lower left corner, and I think this one works better. Thanks for being here. Please like and subscribe. I do appreciate it so very much. Thanks for being here. Thank you.